So, to explain who we are, oh, and the recording's just started. Do I have to let people know? I think that the recording started of the, so you've missed my major entrance there. So Jenny Wakeman, who you've just met, is the Farming and Protected Landscapes Administrator and the first point of contact for administration and finance inquiries. And Alison Jones and myself are Farming and Protected Landscapes advisors. So once your application is in process, either Alison or myself will be assigned to you as your case officer. We have other members of the team supporting the programme. We have Joy Howes, Steph Hayes, who's in charge of promotion, and then Phil Holden, who is a panel member and in charge of any grant decisions below £10,000. We're back. I've explained the projects. We need the next slide, please, Alison. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So projects must deliver against one or more outcomes of the 4 national themes. And Alison will show examples of these as example projects later to make things clearer for this. And you do not have to deliver against each outcome. So the first theme is that of climate, and the outcomes are that more carbon is stored or sequestered, flood risks have been reduced, there's a better understanding among farmers, land managers and the public as to what different habitats and land uses can deliver for carbon storage and reduced carbon emissions, and lastly that the landscape is more resilient to climate change. So on the ground, that may look like measures that reduce flood risk, or a project where tree and hedges are planted to sequester carbon. So it's don't be put off by the wording of the guidance. The second theme is nature. So the outcomes for that are a greater area of wildlife rich habitat, greater connectivity between habitats, existing habitat is better managed for biodiversity, and an increase in biodiversity. So again, on the ground within a project, that might look like improvement of the management of farmland habitats to increase biodiversity and creation of new wildlife habitats. And then the next slide, please, Alison. So the third theme of that is of people. And the outcomes are more opportunities to explore, enjoy and understand the landscape, increased opportunities for more diverse audiences to explore, enjoy and understand the landscape, and greater public engagement in land management. And again, on the ground, that may look like setting up a new permissive route around your holding with interpretation boards to help people discover and enjoy, and also providing opportunities for hard to reach audiences to enjoy the landscape. Also providing opportunities for greater public engagement in land management through perhaps volunteering, hedge planting or tree planting. And the final and fourth theme is that of place. So the outcomes are that the quality of the landscape is reinforced or enhanced, historic structures or features are conserved or enhanced or interpreted more effectively, and there is an increase in the resilience of nature-friendly, sustainable farm businesses, which in turn contributes to a more thriving local authority. So again, examples are that restore or create features characteristic of the local landscape, conserve, enhance or interpret historic features, the Caradoc or Offers Dyke, and measures to support transition towards nature-friendly, sustainable farming. But projects must also support at least one of the priorities of the Shropshire Hills Management Plan. But this plan, to a large extent, mirrors the outcomes that we've just discussed. So by meeting those set out above, you are also supporting the plan. So that's all from me for now. But as I say, Alison will be discussing these outcomes later on with reference to specific projects. So I'll hand you back to Alison now.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Thank you. So what I thought might be worthwhile, as you can see, is a bit of a snapshot of the applications that we received so far. Now we have a tally of 83, of which 74 have been approved, 6 rejected, 2 withdrew before they started, and 1 is currently deferred. and the grant awarded range, quite a wide range, from 2,500 and up to 106,000. The figure for the total project value is where some of those projects, there's been a contribution from the applicant themselves, which is why the total project value range is higher, and obviously quite significantly higher in the upper echelons there. So in total to date, we have allocated over 2 million across a wide range of projects throughout with a good geographical spread across the whole of the Shropshire Hills. And as we go rather quickly, more quickly than I would like, towards the end of this financial year, we still have some funds left to allocate, limited though it is. So we're keen to hear from people who might have a relatively small project that, so in other words, under the 10,000 threshold, that wouldn't need to go to panel. But the critical thing is that that project needs to be completed by the end of March, which is just over 2 months away. So that's could be a little bit challenging. However, for the next financial year, we have an allocation of around 1 million still to allocate for projects and activities to start 1st of April and be completed by March next year. So that is a significant uplift on what we've had previously. As you can see, 2 million over 3 years with 1 million left for 1 year. So quite a challenge. So we really appreciate your help in actually getting some of the money out there to support farmers, landowners, anybody else that can deliver on the programme outcomes. So who can apply? There are clear guidelines on this set by DEFRA. Please bear in mind this is a national programme, so the guidelines are applied across the whole of the country, amongst all of the other national landscapes and national parks. So you must have control the management of the ground that you're applying on, security of tenure, which that may be a tenancy agreement, for the full period of the agreement, including the length of the maintenance requirements, which in most cases will be 5 years beyond from date of application, most likely. We also welcome applications from organisations and individuals who may not have their own land but deliver projects on behalf of others, perhaps in collaboration with one farmer or a group of farmers. So, for example, we've already had we have an agreement ongoing with the Cleeview Farmers Group and the Operoni Farmers Group. The Wildlife Trust have an application up and running, working with a number of landowners in the Upper Clun, as do the National Trust on their ground, and the Country Trust, which is an organisation that facilitates visits out schools, visits out to farms. Anybody who is involved on working on or has access to common land, that is also eligible, but the landowner could apply, or a group of commoners could apply, acting together as a collaborative group, but with the support of the landowner, obviously. There are some exceptions to eligibility for reasons of dual funding, government departments, etc. Other Treasury supported organisations can't apply. We can't do any work on domestic properties, schools, village greens, etc. And for obvious reasons, we can't fund anything that is a statutory requirement. So things to maintain public rights of way or roadside verges, or where there is already a legal duty to do that work, such as unsafe trees, or there's a planning permission requirement. I've listed there the items that were clarified in due course for which capital spend is not eligible. So that includes livestock purchases, vehicles such as tractors and quad bikes, and anything related to renewable energy, where they are part of a feed-in tariff or connected to the grid, national grid. And although this wasn't the case initially, second-hand machinery is not eligible. So I guess for reasons of longevity and sustainability, legacy, long-term legacy. So in terms of assessment, these thresholds, these figures are worth remembering. When the programme first launched, we had a threshold of £5,000. So anybody applying for grants above that would have to have their application reviewed by the local assessment panel. This year, beginning of this financial year, that threshold was raised to 10,000. But locally, we decided that we would stick with the 5,000. Anything under 5,000 would be reviewed by our senior member of the team. And we would reserve at our discretion, anything between 5 and 10 might maybe reviewed by a member of the team, but might, for our own reasons, be referred to the local assessment panel. For example, if it was a particularly unusual or complicated application, or was very, very close to the 10,000 threshold. Quite categorically, anything over 10,000 has to be assessed and go to the local assessment panel. They meet regularly, so so every 6 to 8 weeks, and decisions are made usually on the day as to whether an application is approved or not. And the next meeting is the middle of March, but the deadline for that is the 27th of February, 2 weeks previously. So we're now looking for people to look at applications for delivery next year, realistically, unless you've got an absolutely brilliant idea, that some of which you could deliver before March 24, but the bulk of it for delivery in March 25. Obviously, we're open to discuss these things with you. Just for your reference, the membership of the local assessment panel, it's made up of 5 farmers and land managers, along with, so there's 12 of them altogether, 6 farmers, land managers, plus representatives from Natural England, the NFU, the Wildlife Trust, and our own Shropshire Hills and National Landscape team. This is also something that's quite important to bear in mind, because this is sort of critical to know this when you're writing the application, and these elements are included in the application form. These are the criteria, the 4 criteria we use to assess and score the applications. So the project outcomes that Helen has already referred to are weighted 40% of the overall marking, and so you need to explain how your proposal delivers on the certain outcomes, and that's where less is more. Rather than trying to cover every single one, select those that are most relevant to your proposal. We also need to see that you've planned out how you're going to proceed with the project, so that it's realistic and achievable, particularly when we've now got quite tight deadlines, and if work is not completed by the required deadline, then it may not be paid, or probably would not be paid. We haven't had that situation as yet, but it's worth bearing that in mind. We also want to see some kind of legacy to the project, that it's not just a one-off thing that's kind of starts and finishes within the lifetime of FIPL, that it actually has a lasting impact on the national landscape, and is helping to support farm businesses and their long-term resilience, both financially, economically, and sustainably. And just as importantly, value for money. This is public money coming from the government coffers, so we need to see value for money to show that your proposals are cost effective and justifiable, both the need for the project and the costs associated with it. Payment rates. We have a minimum grant request of £3,000, and we set that locally ourselves. The application form is the same regardless of what the grant request amount that you're asking for. So unfortunately, if anything comes under that, then we can't accept it. Maximum grant request, £250,000. We haven't had any of those yet, as you probably saw. And this would be a very exceptional project. Doubtful now that somebody could deliver a £250,000 project between now and next March, so that's very unlikely. Capital payments and revenue payments are available. You can request. And if you are already in an agreement through the Agri-Environment Programme, whether it's an HLS agreement or stewardship, you can still apply to FIPL, but obviously the items and activities that you apply for obviously must not be part of your existing agreement or compromise your existing agreement. Just as importantly, we're looking for things that add value to what your existing commitments are, and we do have to do a check with the RPA to make sure there are no dual funding issues when applications come in. Payment rates themselves, this is the DEFRA programme, as we've already said, and therefore where there is an equivalent stewardship rate or a farm equipment technology fund rate, in other words, standard payment rates, that will be the rate that we use in the FIPL programme. We can't diversify that. We can't be seen to be, or people can't shop around to get the best deal. There is no, there's no difference between what we fund and what is funded through stewardship or through the capital grant scheme that they offer. But if you're applying for an item or activity that has no SBR, then you would need to get quotes for that work on an actual cost basis. And this is one change that has been made since the programme first launched, in that originally every single item that you were looking for needed to have 3 quotes. Now they backtracked a little bit. So anything under 5,000, at least 1 quote is required. Obviously, if you get 2, brilliant, because that then means that we can see value for money. But we would only fund the lower of the 2 quotes. If it's 5,000 or more, we need 3 comparative quotes for those items, for that particular item or activity, whatever it is. And with the actual cost items, we then apply an intervention rate, a percentage of that actual cost. And this is based on the commercial gain that might be got from it for the applicant or the business that's applying for it. So where there is significant commercial gain, there's a sliding scale of between 0 and 40% of eligible costs. The next category up, if the costs are, if the project or the proposal is going to deliver some commercial benefit, but is also going to be delivering public goods, by which we mean sort of nature, climate, people benefits, then again there's a sliding scale of up to 80% of costs. It would only be in very exceptional cases where there is absolutely no commercial or financial benefit to the applicant or the business would 100% costs be paid. And the intervention rates are not, it's at our discretion, so we make those decisions. Not just one person usually. I consult with colleagues about what, looking at what the application looks like. So it's assessed as not on the individual item, but the item and what it delivers as part of the wider application. And if there are several items, they might all have slightly different intervention rates. There's no sort of blanket intervention rate in one application. So we have that flexibility as well. So to the projects that we have funded. This is a business in the sort of northern part of the Shropshire Hills, where they have a Highland beef enterprise, and the cattle are carrying out a very good conservation and grazing job on an area that is designated local nature reserve. and they had sort of increasing demand for their beef. They were operating their sort of beef box beef business from the farm kitchen, and it was getting rather crowded. So we supported them in doing up this building, the one on the left, to fit it out with cold store, freezer, and a customer cold store display unit. So there was the customer facing area was a bit more official looking. They also purchased this refrigerated trailer, which enables them to comply with food hygiene requirements when they're taking products out to farmers markets and so forth. So that's now working very well for them. This one here, this is a project which the farmer, father and son, applied for this. The area in green is about 60 hectares, on which is just part of the holding, which they wanted to kind of sort of dip their toe in the water, so to speak, to sort of change towards more regenerative grassland management. So here we've funded some electric fencing and water supply infrastructure. And alongside of that, the area to the right, between the two dingles that are named Witchmore Dingle and Poston Dingle, that is a rejuvenation of a wood pasture with the planting of a number of new infield trees. Coupled with that, I suppose the starting point really was that they wanted to fence their stock out of those dingles because they was causing a lot of bank erosion damage, and also there's risk to life and limb of the animals themselves. So they've excluded those animals from two stretches of the dingle and created some nice wide buffer strips on the banks of the dingles for a natural regeneration of trees, shrubs and so forth. So they were quite pleased with how that's gone. So they're now looking to expand this sort of work across other parts of the farm. So we've started discussions about that already. This is an interesting one. This is a brand new, two new entrants to the industry, which we were very keen to support. So they're renting some ground at Brook Vescents, and they are in the process of recreating some wood pasture through a combination of the way they graze their stock and some tree planting. They're doing a bit of woodland rejuvenation, and they have a flock of golden Guernsey goats, dairy goats, some pigs and laying hens, and alongside of the restoration of the ground, which also included improving the boundaries through restoration of the hedges, we also supported them in installing machines for the milking the goats, and the installation of equipment so that they could process and store and then sell on their dairy products and meat and eggs. And they are now up and running and doing very well. So slowly, but it's great to see new people getting set up in this way and being able to help them, giving them a bit of help. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened otherwise with the level of support that FIPA could give. Some of you may have heard about this because we've been sending information out about this on our mailing list, the Pasture and Profit project, which is now up and running. This is being delivered by the Pasture for Life, the local team, so they're local to this area. Benefits on offer include a membership of Pasture for Life for the year, well, a little bit of this year and all of next. The opportunity, though limited in terms of places, for one-to-one mentoring from another farmer, and you're matched with someone that sort of farms in a similar way to you. But there's an opportunity to attend a range of farmer-led events which are just getting started. We actually held one back in December ourselves at Lower Wood Farm near Clee St Margaret, and but up and coming next week, in fact, is another event at near Leominster, and further online events planned. So if anybody's interested in knowing more about that, we can provide you in the information we send out afterwards is a link to and contact for the person, Ruth, who is the project manager. That is very much a farmer-led project, really. The requests and demand for topics for them to cover in the events is coming from those that take part, from the participants themselves. So it's not things that are being imposed on you, or you need to come along to this. Hopefully there'll be enough interest and for them to get plenty of people coming along to those events. Oops. Yeah, okay, sorry, that didn't click through. Yes. So this one here, this is in its coming towards the end of its second year now. This proposal came from a farmer who had a very, very wet arable field, and the cropping on it was pitiful, and he therefore decided that actually he would revert it to what it used to be, which was a flood meadow, effectively, with a little bit of a twist in that the water supply has been diverted across the field to create a whole series of wetland features. The map is very diagrammatic. You will see the reality looks somewhat different. So it's a mixture of brand new wetland habitat, but also serves to attenuate the flood water that was running down the ditches and into the streams and causing erosion issues. The blue mapped area, you may not be able to read that. It's actually an area of short rotation coppice. The idea being that this will be harvested as to produce wood chip for cattle bedding, which then reduces the need to take up in the straw, and the straw is going to be ploughed back into the arable fields. So it's a recycling and soil improvement and so forth. To add to that, expecting to see a wide range of species coming in, but habitat areas will be created alongside of it, along with nest boxes for owls and bats and so forth. So this time March last year, I went out on site to see what they'd done, and this is what it looked like. This was just after the groundworks had been finished. So the two upper shots, obviously that wasn't me in an aeroplane, unfortunately. Those were taken, they were drone shots to show the extent of the area, and then the three lower photographs are the ones that I took on the ground when I was walking around, and it was just lots of mud and lots of water. However, 9 months later, it looks like this, looked like this. It'll be probably won't look like that now. Probably very, very wet now, but they did overseed the whole site with a mixture of grasses and wetland loving plants. But they're also very pleased to see things that have obviously been laying dormant in the seed bank coming up as well. So that's can only go from better to even better. The other external organisation that is delivering FIPL project is LeafEd. Faye Edwards from LeafEd is providing free training for CVAS. CVAS meaning Countryside Educational Visits Accreditation. So this is something that is provides farmers, landowners with the tools and practical guidance and understanding and knowledge to host safe and effective farm visits for schools. you can attend one of two courses. We're running up to courses for up to 10 people on each one in person. Mainly they'll be in person. There may be an opportunity to join one online. Dates are not, it's not until next year. The courses themselves, May and June most likely, and it requires your attendance on 2 days, about approximately a week apart. The follow-up to that is that Faye will provide consultancy support to help the participants plan and deliver their first farm visit. Then just a little bit out in the ordinary here, we have we funded a care farm to improve their the housing and enclosures for the animals and birds they had, make it safe and secure and robust, not just for the animals and birds, but also for the service users themselves and the staff. The service users there, they include adults with learning difficulties, looked after children from the care system, teenagers with mental health difficulties, and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. So quite a wide range of service users. They work with they've got skilled carpenter and horticulturist on site. They work with them on within their capabilities, and they also to help put these things together. But they also are involved with simpler things like the lower structure, which looks like a badly designed ladder, doesn't it? It's actually an enrichment structure for the hens within that enclosure that you can see. And then we have the Country Trust, which was mentioned previously. They work with schools in disadvantaged communities, and they are facilitating visits to farms, to one farm in particular, providing them with new experiences and learning about where their food comes from. None of us will be surprised that a lot of children don't really know where their food comes from. But not only that, they're covering multiple national curriculum topics with one visit to the farm. So that is the end of my bit, and all we've got now is some time for questions. So I will end the slideshow, stop sharing, and we can then take questions.
There aren't any questions in the chat.
Okay.
Unless anybody wants to put any there. So
the other way of okay, so I was just going to say, so Mags has just shown us how to do it. So by clicking on the raise your hand, we will be able to start answering questions. So obviously you need to unmute yourself. People forget this. Okay, so Mags was first, I think, wasn't she?
She was, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Pole position. Thank you very much, Alison. That was a lovely synopsis of some really nice projects there. Nice to see.
Thank you.
Now, I may have missed this early on at the beginning. My question is, does the FIPL project support land purchase or anything to do with the administration around a land purchase, say by a community trust that needs help forming and getting the legalities set up in order to protect a piece of land that could then be a community nature reserve, that kind of thing?
I'm not going to say no, because we have had a couple of inquiries about this previously. However, in order to justify it, you would have to make a very, very strong case. Probably provide lots of supporting evidence that, you know, that a business plan and a long-term management plan, all those sorts of things, because obviously the FIPL funding stops next March. But we've got to be certain that there is a legacy, you know, way beyond FIPL. So I don't know of any other protected landscapes that have funded land purchase, but I can find out and see what, you know, situations, you know, we've got a chat forum that I can ask the question on, find out if anybody has and what their situation was, if you wish. I can get back to you, Mags.
Thank you. That'd be great. Yeah.
Have you got a specific? Have you got something in mind already?
Well, there's just quite a lot of initiatives lately, and there is something ongoing where local communities have got together and formed a trust, so built a community land trust in order to do a small purchase of land that clearly has biodiversity value in some cases, you know, for climate and carbon sequestration and flood management as well, and have managed to, you know, put out a fundraising effort and achieve what they need to do. And I just wondered whether FIPL might be able to support some of that process, you know, not necessarily just the money for the land, but supporting the, I don't know, setting up the arrangements, you know, because obviously that's quite a high admin task, isn't it? Establishing a land trust. So yeah, anything you can find out would be lovely.
We can't. Yes, the difficulty is that the only things that we can fund is when an application has been approved. So the setting up, the planning permissions, the kind of initial development of the project, we can support it, but we can't fund it. We as advisors can support it, but we can't provide funding for the technical advice that's required to develop it. We can fund oversight or management time to facilitate the delivery of a project, but it's got to be sort of post application. It's got to be part of the application itself.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank
Did I
you. So if
explain
you
that
find out,
okay?
yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything you can find out in relation to land purchase would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I think we've got Joe Manifold next.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. I've got 2 or 3 questions, but I'll just, if there's other people waiting, I'll just take them one at a time. First of all, I'm looking at a project which is mostly covered by standard rates for fencing and hedge planting.
Yes.
If the standard rates apply, I think I've understood I don't need to get quotations. But presumably, if the actual cost is less than the standard rate, you only pay the actual cost of the invoice.
No, the standard rates apply regardless.
Okay, that's really helpful. And then the intervention rate would then be applied to that if there was one. Is that right?
We don't apply intervention rates to standard payment rates. No, only to actual costs.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. My second question is, I've read through all the documents that you've referred me to. Thank you, Alison. And it talks about measurement of progress against objectives. I'm not quite sure if one is putting a fence in to protect trees, then once it's in, it's in. I don't understand how you measure progress.
I suppose one of the things that that we request to accompany an application is a map to show what you're proposing to do. That's very important, but also some photographs, so like the before photographs, okay, so which also provides information on what things look like now, which can help to justify the grant request, okay. And then, so if you provide those with the application and then undertake to take further photographs, fixed point is a good idea, so that it's the same location each time. Fixed point photographs of the site or of the bit of woodland or whatever it is at intervals to show that actually this is helping these trees to get established, or protect, you know, the hedge that you've pleached is growing really well, or the grassland sward is changing, whatever that might be. So it's and also maybe if you undertake some monitoring of the tree growth or whatever it is as well. So it's that your own undertaking to do certain sort of monitoring and evaluation steps yourselves.
Okay, that's really helpful. And if I'm allowed, just one other question. How much detail do you want? I've got a lot of reports. I've got a lot of nature reports. Do you? But it could. I just don't want to sort of weighing with so much paper that it just makes the application too heavy.
Mm.
I mean, are you going to give me guidance on that?
Without knowing what they are, no. Perhaps we could have a one-to-one, Joe, and just you
Okay.
can tell me what. Oh, it's sort of obviously whatever. Having supporting evidence and documentation and so on is useful, but obviously, yes, there's a limit to how much of that might be directly relevant to what you're asking for. So perhaps we could have a separate conversation about that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for those.
Okay. Anybody else with a burning question?
If anyone thinks of a question after, they can email us, can't they?
Yes.
Will an email be sent out with all the links that we've talked about? So
Yes.
our contact details will be on that, won't it?
Yes, I've made a list of things. So, for example, along with the recording, we can send links to the FIPL section of the website. And if it may take some time for you to kind of digest what's been discussed here, but there'll also be a link to the online inquiry form, which is useful for us to have because it's a really useful starting point for any discussion that might result from that. So the inquiry form is just your contact details and also some information about what your project proposal is, and then we can contact either myself or Helen will get in touch with you to kind of discuss it further. Okay. We can also send out the pasture and profit contact details, the person there, and phase details from LeafEd. If anybody needs it, we can send a link to the grant finder tool, the Control Stewardship Grant Finder tool, because that's got all the information you need about stewardship grants. The Magic website that Helen referred to previously as well. So anything else that anybody can think of, just drop us an email. Okay.
We have a question
Okay.
from Tom Morgan,
Right.
I believe. Unless he's, hang on.
Where is
Joey, your
Tom?
hand's still up. Presumably you finished, can you just cancel that? Thank you.
Hi, yeah, just a question to do with dual funding. We've got some land that runs alongside Landbrook, and that then feeds into the River Clun and into the team, which you're obviously trying to protect. We've at the moment it's got like a buffer strip on it, which is set aside, and we like the idea of planting that up with trees because we think it would provide better protection. Would that count as dual funding, or is that something that could be looked at?
What's the status of the buffer strip, Thomas?
At the moment, it's just, like wild grassland just left as sort of pasture. We have put some, like, off our own volition, put some wildflowers in it, but we're not paid for that.
Right. So it's not being funded as a stewardship option then, as a buffer strip. No. In which case, if that's still under your control and there's no management requirements on it, then tree planting is a possibility there. Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Was there a question as well, Jenny? Another question.
I think that was Thomas's question.
I'm just looking at chat now.
Oh,
just a couple of people.
Mags
on the
has asked
chat.
a question, hasn't she?
No, she sent a link.
Sorry, there was. I did send a question as well, but it's quite a sort of broad level one that maybe is not that much of interest to everybody else. I don't know.
Quick answer to that, Mags. Our contact on the local nature recovery strategy is Rachel, who is our natural environment officer. So she's part of the team that are developing it, and she refers back to us, so she's kind of our link. So not FIPL itself directly, but obviously elements of it might be FIPLable, if you like, in due course.
Oh, that's great. Rachel, sorry, what was Rachel's surname?
Rachel Groves.
Rachel Groves.
Glover. Wrong G. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, and the other thing I did pop in the chat wasn't a question, but it was a link actually to the Shropshire Botanical Society online tool, which is open to anybody. And what you can do on that is put a site name, a place name in there, or a square, or search on a species. But for this project, I just thought it might be handy for the biodiversity related ones, so that people can just, put a place name in there and have a search and see what species records are there. Just might be useful.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's great. Thanks. I've not come across that before. I mean, I usually go to the NBN network. So
yes, well, it does actually take the Shropshire data set from the NBN by complicated computer behind the scenes methods. But we just made this really lovely, simple, easy to access tool that's just Shropshire based. It's just a bit easier to use than the NBN.
Great, thanks for that. That's really helpful.
Yeah, no worries. And obviously, it's lovely to have any records of new species that are coming in fed back in the other direction.
Well, we have 1 or 2 people on this meeting that do that kind of work, don't we, Rob? So so that he's always finding interesting things. So okay.
Thank you.
Oh, we have a question from James Moore.
Hello, Jenny. My question is quite simple. We had a visit with Kath Landles, I think it
was. Yes.
Landles.
Yes.
At the Gliding Club on the Longmynd last year, together with English Nature. And there was a discussion about doing a farm study to benchmark work that was done 25 years ago in installing a fence. And it was thought that the fence was of huge value, but because a study hadn't been done in the intervening period, it would be worth doing a farm study. Would the grant funding that you have here have the potential to be used for such a study?
So was the survey done before the fence was put up, and you want to now see how it's changed?
Certainly the conversation with English Nature and Kath seemed to suggest that such a study may have been done in the past.
Right, okay.
But what was kind of talked, and this was a walk with also Peter Carty and a number of others from the National Trust, was that it had been resulted in a considerable improvement in the land and the biodiversity.
Right.
Peter Carty in particular was getting, as he does, rather let's say motivated about various birds that he was seeing and wet flushes. But it was also talked about that there might be other opportunities for conservation work.
Okay.
But so it really came back to doing that initial bit of work.
Yes. So I mentioned earlier that we can fund sort of feasibility studies, initial surveys, but that could be funded, but only as part of an application that also included measures to be delivered as a result of the findings of the survey, which I know is difficult. It's kind of chicken and egg, really, isn't it? You've got to do one without the other, but you can't predict what's going to happen. So we have done so like when we had 3 years ahead of us, we did some phase 1s where people did the initial survey with a view to submitting a second application to actually put into place recommendations or outcomes from that survey. So again, probably the best thing to do, James, is for us to have a chat about it. And have you got because we can also point in the direction of potential of ecologists that could do that kind of work for you as well, if you haven't already got somebody lined up or thought about.
No, we haven't got something lined up. It's just a case of, realizing it's something important to do, and there would be great benefit.
Yeah.
But it's just having mental time on myself and the rest of the team.
Yes. Yes.
And having discussed it with Kath and Peter and others, it's kind of fallen into abeyance. And this whole session has raised it up my list, as it were.
Okay, good. Yes, yeah.
You know,
Okay.
because I just look at that land and you just see how fabulous it is. You know, both from a land and a wildlife and equally a history perspective.
Right.
And you know there's more opportunity to do more things.
Yeah, and that would be the purpose of the survey, to find out what those things are.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay.
I mean, I
Okay,
was
so yeah.
teasing Peter about putting ponds there where there were wet flushes. And
Yeah,
he
no,
was,
we wouldn't fund if there
he
was
was
something
saying no.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's I'll add you to my list of, or add you to the list of people to have a one-to-one with them.
That would be
James.
fabulous, Alison. That'd be fabulous.
Yeah. Okay. Might be me. Might be Helen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I'll lower my hand then. Oh, sorry. No, it's the other way.
Okay.
I can't
Thank
see
you.
any more questions.
No, I can't either. No. Last chance. As Helen said, if something, you know, if you go away and mull things over and you have a question, then drop us an email. And if you then kind of from this, you think, oh, yes, actually, you know, I'd quite like to develop this, that and the other proposal, then send it over to us via the online inquiry form. Okay. Okay. So if there's no more questions, well, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for the nice words, and we'll hopefully be working with some of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now. So you can switch off the recording now.
Yeah.
Nice of people to say thank you.